The summer that I was ordained a deacon, in 2015, my parents, about a month after my ordination, moved from our house that I grew up in here in Oklahoma City, out into Mustang, into one of the suburbs. And right down the road from my parents' house that they live in now, there's kind of a large empty plot of land that is essentially just a pit, right? There's kind of just a big old dugout pit kind of thing. And not long after they moved there, a sign appeared at this empty plot of land. And the sign said, "Fill dirt wanted," with the phone number that you could call. And I guess you could call, and if you had extra dirt, they were looking for it, right? So you could take your dirt there and put it in the pit. And over the years, as I have driven by that plot of land, little by little, I would drive by and, one time there would be like another little pile of dirt, and then the next time maybe one or two more, and then I would go by a few times and there would be none, and then I'd come back and there would be more and more and more. And still to this day, 8 years later, that sign is still there, "Fill dirt wanted," with the phone number. Right? And still, there's a pit there. Right? But that pit is much smaller now than it was 8 years ago. And I know what you're probably thinking: why is he talking about a pit and dirt in his homily? I think that pit is, at least in my mind, a really good illustration, right, of the imagery that Isaiah is using in today's first reading. Right? He says, "A voice cries out, 'In the desert, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the wasteland a highway for our God. Every valley shall be filled in, every mountain and hill shall be made low. The rugged land shall be made plain, the rough country a broad valley.'" The imagery that Isaiah is using in this prophecy is imagery of things that take a long time. They're things that don't just happen overnight. Anyone who's ever driven anywhere, ever, knows that roads are not a quick thing to construct, right? Road construction takes a very long time, or at least it seems that way, right? One of the central themes of this Advent season, one of the things that I think is perhaps the most important lesson of this time, is patience. We have been trained in our world, in our society, we have been trained to be very impatient. Right? Everything we could want is very quickly accessible to us. Right? If I want to know something, all I need to do is pull out my phone, type it into Google, and I get an answer. Hopefully it's the right one, but I do get an answer, right? If I want to have something, most of the time I can go to Amazon and I can find it, and it'll be in my hands 2 days from now, right? We've been trained to be very, very impatient. We don't like to wait for things. And I think one of the things that we like to wait for the least is holiness. We are very impatient, especially, I think, with ourselves. I want to be a saint, and I want to be a saint right now. I want to be converted to Jesus, and I want to be converted to Jesus right now. I want to overcome the sin that I struggle with, and I want to do it right now. And if it doesn't happen right now, then I'm going to get really discouraged, and I'm going to get down on myself, and I'm going to beat myself up about it, and eventually I'm probably just going to give up, right? That's typically the way that we like to live our spiritual lives, because we don't like to wait for things. But Isaiah reminds us today, and St. Peter reminds us today, right, that conversion and holiness and living a life in relationship with the Lord is something that takes time. St. Peter in today's second reading says, do not ignore this one fact, right? Not this one general idea, not this one theory, not this one opinion, right? This one fact, right? That to the Lord, one day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like one day. The Lord does not delay his promise, as some regard delay, but he is patient with you. Right? That's one of the most important, I think, lines in Scripture. Right? He is patient with you. The Lord knows you. The Lord knows me. The Lord knows all of us. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And he knows that we are weak. And he knows that we are going to take time to be fully converted to him, to be fully living the life of a saint. And he's willing to wait with us, and he's willing to work with us, and he's willing to bring us along in his own time and in his own way to make us into the saints that he calls us to be. The first step for us is to put up that sign in our heart. Fill dirt wanted. Right? Grace wanted. Holiness wanted. Virtue wanted. That's the first step, right? To turn to the Lord and to say, Lord, I want to be a saint. I want to be holy. I want to give myself to you. I want to be your disciple. That's the first step. Right? And then we have to continually renew our commitment to that sign. We have to continually and consistently open up our hearts so that the Lord, little by little, can bring in the fill dirt, right? The Lord, little by little, can pour into us his grace, can pour into us his mercy, can help us to grow in virtue, to help us be more faithful to prayer, to help us grow in our understanding of him, to help us grow in the way in which we follow his law. But little by little, the Lord patiently works with us and walks with us and brings us closer and closer and closer and closer to the life of heaven. So today, as we come to the Eucharist and Jesus gives himself to us, we ask for the grace to be as patient with ourselves as he is with us, and to open our hearts and to allow him to give us his grace, so that over time we can consistently open our hearts to his love and allow him to draw us deeper into that relationship of holiness that he calls us to. And at the end of our lives, whenever that may be, right, we must trust that the Lord, who knows how much time we have, will, by the time we get to the end of our lives, make us into a saint. He'll give us what we need, when we need it, and how we need it, so that we can be transformed, right? And we can truly become the saints that he calls us to be.